Frank Mason stared out the enormous crystal viewport of the Galactic Council's orbital chamber. Earth looked small from here, a blue marble suspended in darkness. After 15 years as humanity's lead representative, this view still filled him with wonder. And now, with sadness. They won't budge on this, will they? Lisa Carter whispered beside him. Her dark eyes reflected the starlight as she adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform. No, Frank replied. The vote's been decided before we even entered the chamber. The council chamber hummed with the quiet conversations of over 200 alien species. The massive circular room featured rising tiers of seats, with the most powerful and ancient civilizations occupying the lowest ring. Humanity's seats were near the back, as they had been since Earth joined the Council 3 centuries ago. High Counselor Zell Moore, a tall being with silver skin and multiple eye stalks, called the session to order. Representatives of all Council worlds, we gather to address petition E7729 from Earth regarding resource allocation for their outer colony terraforming projects. Frank straightened his shoulders as he approached the central speaking platform. The gravity felt slightly heavier here, a subtle reminder of the Council's control even over the physical environment. Honored representatives, Frank began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. For the 6th time in 2 decades, Earth formally requests access to Class 3 terraforming technology for our Mars and Europa settlements. Our colonies face environmental collapse within 5 years without intervention. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The representative from Xandor, a gas giant civilization with over 10,000 years of history, raised a tendril. Earth continues to overextend its colonial ambitions, the Xandorian's translator broadcasted. Your species has barely mastered interplanetary travel, yet demands technologies reserved for civilizations with millennia of stability. Lisa stepped forward to join Frank. This wasn't planned, but he welcomed her support. With respect, she said, the Council's own charter guarantees technological assistance for life-sustaining infrastructure. Our colonists didn't choose to settle in harsh environments out of ambition, but necessity. Earth's population crisis demanded expansion. High Counselor Zellmore's eye stalks swiveled toward them. The Council determines necessity. Representative Carter, your species continues to reproduce at unsustainable rates. Frank felt a flush of anger. So our children should suffer while ancient worlds hoard technologies that could save lives. Technologies you freely share among yourselves. The chamber erupted in outraged voices. Frank had broken protocol by directly challenging the Council's authority. He no longer cared. For 3 centuries, humanity has followed your rules, Frank continued, raising his voice over the growing chaos. We've contributed discoveries, resources, and even fought in your wars. Yet we remain second-class members, forever told to wait our turn while our people struggle. Lisa placed a warning hand on his arm, but Frank gently shook it off. The decision had already been made, not just by the Council, but by Earth's unified government after years of frustration. Earth did not send us here today merely to request terraforming technology, Frank announced. We came to inform you of humanity's unanimous decision to withdraw from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. Silence fell across the chamber, so complete that Frank could hear the subtle hum of the life support systems. This is unprecedented, Zellmore finally said. No species has ever voluntarily left the Council. Perhaps that's why the Council has grown complacent, Lisa replied. Humanity will forge its own path forward. We will develop the technologies you deny us. We will build alliances based on equality, not age. Such isolation will set your species back centuries, the Kandorian warned. The Council controls all major trade routes, scientific exchanges, and defensive networks. Frank smiled thinly. Then we'll create new ones. As they turned to leave, Zellmore called out, sanctions will be implemented immediately. Earth will regret this decision. Frank looked back one last time at the gathered representatives of 1,000 worlds. No, Counselor. The day will come when you regret forcing us to make it. As they walked from the chamber, Lisa whispered, Do you think we're ready for what comes next? Frank watched as Earth turned slowly below them. We'll have to be. 10 years passed since Earth left the Galactic Council. The first months had been difficult. Council sanctions cut off established trade routes, and many human vessels found themselves stranded in distant systems. But the isolation that was meant to cripple humanity instead forged a new path. Dr. Alan Wright stood in his laboratory beneath the Martian surface, watching as light bent impossibly around his latest prototype. At 53, with graying hair and steady hands, he represented humanity's greatest hope for true independence. "Run the sequence again," he told his assistant, Becky Ford. She nodded, her young face serious as she adjusted the controls. The small metal sphere in the testing chamber flickered and vanished, then reappeared 3 meters away. No flash, no sound, just displacement. "Time to jump. 0:42 seconds, Becky announced, her voice rising with excitement. "That's below the quantum threshold. We did it, Ellen." Wright allowed himself a small smile. After years of trial and error, they had created what the Council had always claimed was impossible for a young species, a functioning faster-than-light drive that didn't rely on the Council's carefully controlled technology. "Send word to the Alliance headquarters," he said. "Tell Director Harris we're ready for full-scale testing." The Earth Alliance had formed within months of the Council departure, uniting formerly competing nations under a single banner. Survival demanded cooperation, and old borders quickly became meaningless when faced with potential galactic isolation. Far from Earth, on a small moon orbiting an unremarkable gas giant in the unclaimed Tau Ceti system, Commander Olivia Jones walked through the corridors of Outpost Sigma, one of 12 secret research bases established beyond Council scanning range. "How's our cover holding?" she asked her operations officer. "So far so good," replied Greg Patterson, bringing up a holographic display. "The automated mining equipment we left in orbit is convincing any passing ships this is just an uninhabited resource extraction site. No Council patrols have approached within sensor range in over 3 months." Jones nodded. "And Project Daedalus. Ready for your inspection, Commander." They walked to a massive hangar where a ship unlike any built before stood waiting. The Daedalus was the first vessel designed to incorporate Wright's FTL technology, along with other innovations developed during the silent years, as people now called this decade of isolation. "She's beautiful," Jones said simply. "And invisible to Council detection methods," Patterson added. "They still think we're crawling along using their outdated engine designs." Meanwhile, on Europa, Dr. Diana Wilson carefully examined the readings from the new terraforming array. Without Council technology, humanity had been forced to develop their own solutions for hostile environments. The result was something entirely new, a system that worked with native conditions rather than completely replacing them. "The bacterial adaptation is spreading faster than predicted," she told Colony Governor Paul Martinez. "We'll have breathable pockets within 2 years, not 5. Martinez looked out over the icy landscape where dome structures were already being dismantled in certain areas. "The Council said this was impossible without their help, that we'd all die out here." "The Council underestimated human ingenuity," Wilson replied. "In the depths of space, Council intelligence vessels attempted to monitor human development. Their reports grew increasingly concerned as human ships disappeared from tracking only to reappear elsewhere, using technology the Council couldn't identify. "They're advancing too quickly," reported Agent Zex to the High Council. "Our monitoring stations are detecting energy signatures we cannot explain." High Councilor Zelmore's eye stalks quivered in distress. "Impossible. Without our guidance, they should be regressing, not advancing." "There's more," Zex continued. "Several other species have begun refusing Council technology inspections. They've heard rumors about the humans." Zelmore turned to gaze at the star map, where Earth's system glowed faintly. "Find out what they're building out there. The humans cannot be allowed to destabilize the galactic order we've maintained for millennia." But it was already too late. The silent years were ending, and humanity was ready to return to the stars on their own terms. Captain Susan Miller felt her heart race as the unknown ship appeared on the horizon sensors. After 15 years of isolation from the galactic community, this would be humanity's first official contact with an alien species since leaving the Council. "Maintain distance at 5,000 kilometers," she ordered, her voice calm despite her nerves. "Open all standard communication channels." The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. The Horizon was humanity's newest exploration vessel, built with technology developed during the Silent Years. Its sleek design and advanced capabilities were unknown to the rest of the galaxy. "Ship identified as a Vexillar trading vessel," reported Communications Officer Ben Riley. "They're hailing us." On screen, Susan said, straightening her uniform. The view screen flickered to life, showing a Vexillar trader, a tall, thin being with mottled green skin and 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "This is Trademaster Holvex of the independent vessel Starwinder," the alien said through its translator. "Identify yourselves." Susan stepped forward. "I am Captain Susan Miller of the Earth Alliance vessel Horizon. We come in peace and offer greetings from humanity." All 4 of the Vexillar's eyes widened at once. "Human, your kind has not been seen beyond your system since your departure from the Council." "We've been busy," Susan replied with a small smile. "We would like to discuss possible trade opportunities, if you're interested." The Vexillar seemed hesitant. "The Council has restrictions on trading with non-member species." "The Council doesn't need to know," Susan offered, "and I believe you'll find our goods worth the risk." 6 hours later, Susan sat across from Cole Vex in the Horizon's meeting room. The Vexillar examined a small device that contained medical nanites, technology the Council had always refused to share with humanity, claiming it was beyond their development stage. "This is impossible," Cole Vex said. "These nanites are more advanced than those available even to mid-tier Council members." "How did humans develop this?" "When you're forced to solve your own problems, you sometimes find better solutions," Susan explained. "We're offering exclusive trade rights to the Vexillar Independent Merchants Guild." Cole Vex's skin changed color slightly, a sign of excitement. "The Council would impose sanctions if they discovered this arrangement, which is why we're also offering this." Susan handed over another device, a cloaking system for your ships that renders them invisible to Council scanning technology. The Vexillar studied it carefully. "You've advanced far beyond what anyone expected." "That was the idea," Susan said. Within days, news of the encounter spread through non-Council networks. The Vexillar were respected traders, and their sudden access to advanced technology caused a stir throughout the galaxy. Other independent species began seeking contact with human ships. On the Council's central world, an emergency session was called. Representatives from 50 major civilizations gathered to discuss what they now called the human problem. "Reports confirm the humans have somehow developed technologies we deliberately withheld," said Security Director Jalfon. "Their ships are appearing in multiple sectors, establishing direct trade with non-Council worlds." High Councilor Zelmore paced before the assembly. "This threatens the careful balance we've maintained for centuries. Younger species must be guided, not allowed to develop unchecked." A representative from the Ilarian Republic stood. "Perhaps we made a mistake with the humans. Their innovations could benefit all species, or destroy us all," countered another member. "There are reasons we control technological advancement." Back aboard the Horizon, Susan received a message from Earth Alliance headquarters. A dozen more ships would join her mission, establishing contact throughout the sector. Already, 3 other species had reached out requesting meetings. "It seems the galaxy missed us," Ben said as they plotted their next destination. Susan nodded. "They didn't miss us. They missed what we represent: freedom from Council control." As the Horizon jumped to its next destination, Susan couldn't help feeling that everything was about to change. Humanity's return to galactic affairs wasn't just about trade or technology. It was the beginning of a fundamental shift in power that had remained unchallenged for thousands of years. Captain Susan Miller felt her heart race as the unknown ship appeared on the horizon sensors. After 15 years of isolation from the galactic community, this would be humanity's first official contact with an alien species since leaving the Council. "Maintain distance at 5,000 kilometers," she ordered, her voice calm despite her nerves. "Open all standard communication channels." The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. The Horizon was humanity's newest exploration vessel, built with technology developed during the Silent Years. Its sleek design and advanced capabilities were unknown to the rest of the galaxy. "Ship identified as a Vexillar trading vessel," reported Communications Officer Ben Riley. "They're hailing us." On screen, Susan said, straightening her uniform. The view screen flickered to life, showing a Vexillar trader, a tall, thin being with mottled green skin and 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "This is Trademaster Cole Vex of the independent vessel Starwinder," the alien said through its translator. "Identify yourselves." Susan stepped forward. "I am Captain Susan Miller of the Earth Alliance vessel Horizon. We come in peace and offer greetings from humanity." All 4 of the Vexillar's eyes widened at once. "Human? Your kind has not been seen beyond your system since your departure from the Council." "We've been busy," Susan replied with a small smile. "We would like to discuss possible trade opportunities, if you're interested." The Vexillar seemed hesitant. "The Council has restrictions on trading with non-member species." "The Council doesn't need to know," Susan offered, "and I believe you'll find our goods worth the risk." 6 hours later, Susan sat across from Cole Vex in the Horizon's meeting room. The Vexillar examined a small device that contained medical nanites, technology the Council had always refused to share with humanity, claiming it was beyond their development stage. "This is impossible," Cole Vex said. "These nanites are more advanced than those available even to mid-tier Council members." "How did humans develop this?" "When you're forced to solve your own problems, you sometimes find better solutions," Susan explained. "We're offering exclusive trade rights to the Vexillar Independent Merchants Guild." Cole Vex's skin changed color slightly, a sign of excitement. "The Council would impose sanctions if they discovered this arrangement, which is why we're also offering this." Susan handed over another device, a cloaking system for your ships that renders them invisible to Council scanning technology. The Vexillar studied it carefully. "You've advanced far beyond what anyone expected." "That was the idea," Susan said. Within days, news of the encounter spread through non-Council networks. The Vexillar were respected traders, and their sudden access to advanced technology caused a stir throughout the galaxy. Other independent species began seeking contact with human ships. On the Council's central world, an emergency session was called. Representatives from 50 major civilizations gathered to discuss what they now called the human problem. "Reports confirm the humans have somehow developed technologies we deliberately withheld," said Security Director Jalfon. "Their ships are appearing in multiple sectors, establishing direct trade with non-Council worlds." High Councilor Zelmore paced before the assembly. "This threatens the careful balance we've maintained for centuries. Younger species must be guided, not allowed to develop unchecked." A representative from the Ilarian Republic stood. "Perhaps we made a mistake with the humans. Their innovations could benefit all species, or destroy us all," countered another member. "There are reasons we control technological advancement." Back aboard the Horizon, Susan received a message from Earth Alliance headquarters. A dozen more ships would join her mission, establishing contact throughout the sector. Already, 3 other species had reached out requesting meetings. "It seems the galaxy missed us," Ben said as they plotted their next destination. Susan nodded. "They didn't miss us. They missed what we represent: freedom from Council control." As the Horizon jumped to its next destination, Susan couldn't help feeling that everything was about to change. Humanity's return to galactic affairs wasn't just about trade or technology. It was the beginning of a fundamental shift in power that had remained unchallenged for thousands of years. The Coalition of Independence, Ambassador John Garcia stood at the viewport of the Proxima Centauri colony's newly constructed diplomatic center. Below him, representatives from 7 different species mingled in the central garden, their different body shapes and colors creating a vibrant tapestry against the carefully cultivated earth plants. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" asked his assistant, Mary Baker. 2 years ago, most of these species wouldn't even talk to each other. John nodded. At 56, he had spent most of his diplomatic career under council rule, where interactions between developing species were carefully monitored and controlled. Now, he was witnessing something new in galactic history. "The Nelvans and Tarosi delegations are ready for the security treaty signing," Mary continued. They'd brought their military advisors as requested. The meeting room was designed to accommodate beings of widely varying sizes and environmental needs. The blue-skinned Nelvans, tall and graceful with 4 arms, sat opposite the stocky, fur-covered Tarosi. Both species had, like humanity, chafed under council restrictions for centuries. "The Earth Alliance thanks you for your trust," John began, speaking through translator devices. "Today marks the formal creation of what we're calling the Coalition of Independence." The Nelvan speaker, Rilna, leaned forward. "For too long, the Council has claimed they alone can maintain galactic stability. Yet they achieve this by keeping species like ours dependent on them. My people were told our planet's rare minerals could only be safely extracted using Council technology," growled Krath, the Tarosi leader. "We paid enormous fees for their help until human engineers showed us better methods." John activated a holographic display showing trade routes connecting their territories. "By combining our defense systems and sharing technological innovations, we create a network the Council cannot easily disrupt." The treaty signing was broadcast across Coalition worlds. On dozens of planets, beings watched as former rivals became allies under humanity's guidance. The Coalition wasn't based on age or technological advancement like the Council, but on mutual respect and independence. On Earth, Defense Minister Ryan Ellis received the first reports of Council probe ships approaching Coalition territory. "They're testing our resolve," he told his staff. "Prepare response teams. But remember, we avoid direct confrontation unless absolutely necessary." The Coalition's strength wasn't just military. Within months, cultural exchange programs began, with artists, scientists, and ordinary citizens visiting each other's worlds. The Tarosi's music, with its deep rhythmic patterns, became surprisingly popular on Earth. Meanwhile, human cooking techniques revolutionized Nelvan cuisine. These exchanges led to unexpected innovations. When Nelvan crystal crafters began working with human quantum physicists, they developed new communication systems that operated faster than anything the Council possessed. In markets across the galaxy, Council-controlled trade monopolies faced competition for the first time in centuries. Coalition goods, made without restrictive Council regulations, were often cheaper and more effective. "We've lost 30% of our medical supply contracts in the outer systems," reported a Council economic advisor. "The human Tarosi medical devices are outperforming our standard models." The Council response was predictable. They increased tariffs on Coalition goods and restricted travel between Council and Coalition worlds. But these measures only pushed more independent-minded species toward the Coalition. On a space station orbiting a neutral world, Council agent Vex Tool attempted to bribe a Coalition official. His target was Beth Wilson, John Garcia's deputy for trade relations. "The Council could make you extremely wealthy," Vex Tool suggested. "We just need information about Coalition defense protocols." Beth smiled politely. "I appreciate the offer, but you misunderstand what we're building. The Coalition isn't just an alternative power structure. It's a different way of thinking about galactic relationships." Vex Toll reported his failure to Council headquarters. It was one of dozens of unsuccessful attempts to infiltrate Coalition leadership. As the Coalition approached its first anniversary, John Garcia prepared for a major expansion. Representatives from 15 more species had requested membership talks. "They're afraid," John told Mary as they reviewed the applications. Not of us, but of what happens if the Council remains unchallenged. And the Council? Mary asked. What are they afraid of? John watched as a Nelvin family toured the garden below, their children playing with young Tarosi. They're afraid of exactly this, a galaxy where their control is no longer needed or wanted. The invitation. Vice Admiral Peter Collins stared at the message in disbelief. After 25 years of separation, after sanctions, blockades, and the Arcturian incident, the Galactic Council was requesting a formal meeting with Earth's leadership. Is this verified? He asked his security chief, Laura Wilson. Multiple confirmation protocols complete, she replied. It's genuine. They're sending a delegation led by High Counselor Zelmore himself. The Lunar Diplomatic Center had been chosen for the meeting. Neutral ground that was still within Earth's defense perimeter. Originally built as a research facility, it had been converted into humanity's primary diplomatic hub after the formation of the coalition. They must be desperate to send Zelmore, Peter said, looking out at Earth hanging in the black sky. He was the one who threatened us when we left. A lot has changed in 25 years, Laura replied. Indeed it had. The coalition now included 37 species across nearly 200 star systems. Trade and cultural exchange flowed freely between formerly isolated worlds, and technologies developed without council restrictions had led to a burst of innovation that was reshaping galactic society. 3 days later, Peter watched as the council ship docked at the lunar facility. It was smaller than he expected. Not the grand diplomatic vessel the council typically used for important missions, but a modest transport with minimal weapons. High Counselor Zelmore looked older than the images Peter had studied. The silver being's eye stalks drooped slightly, and his movements seemed slower. Welcome to Lunar Diplomatic Center, Peter said formally. Earth is honored by your presence. Zelmore's translator conveyed his response. The honor is mutual, Vice Admiral Collins. We have much to discuss. In the main conference room, representatives from Earth sat across from the council delegation. The atmosphere was tense as Zelmore began to speak. For 10,000 years, the council has guided galactic development according to principles we believed were for the common good. We regulated technology, managed resources, and maintained peace between worlds. Peter listened carefully, noting what was left unsaid. Recent events have caused us to reconsider some of these principles, Zelmore continued. The coalition you have built functions despite rejecting our guidance. In some areas, it has surpassed what we thought possible. We didn't leave the council to prove a point, Peter replied. We left because we needed to survive, and you wouldn't help us. Zelmore's eye stalks quivered, a gesture of acknowledgement. That decision was perhaps mistaken. The room fell silent. No council representative had ever admitted error in official proceedings. The council formally recognizes the sovereignty of the Coalition of Independence and all territorial claims currently established, Zelmore announced. We propose a new relationship based on equal standing. Peter leaned forward. And what would this relationship entail? A restructuring of galactic governance, a new model with representation based on contribution rather than age or historical status. The negotiations continued for days. Earth's demands were clear: equal access to resources, freedom of scientific development, and protection for all species regardless of technological advancement. To everyone's surprise, the Council agreed to most terms without significant resistance. On the 4th day, Peter took Zelmore on a tour of the facility's research wing, where scientists from a dozen species worked together. I must ask, Zelmore said privately, how did humanity advance so quickly? Your understanding of dimensional physics surpasses civilizations with thousands of years more experience. Peter smiled. We looked at problems differently. When you've been told for centuries that something is impossible, you stop trying. We had no such limitations. And this is why you succeeded where we predicted failure, Zelmore observed. In the physics lab, Dr. Ellie Morgan demonstrated a new drive system that allowed ships to move through what she called parallel space. neither normal space nor the hyperspace lanes the Council used. This technology changes everything we understood about travel between stars, Zelmore admitted, his voice conveying genuine awe. Zelmore was silent for a moment, because the Council is facing threats from beyond known space, threats we cannot handle alone, and because your coalition has shown us a different way forward. As the Council delegation prepared to depart, Peter received one final message from Earth's leadership. Accept the partnership, but verify all promises. The seeds of a new galactic order had been planted. Whether they would grow into something better remained to be seen. The new order. Space Station Unity hung in the emptiness between two star systems, purposely built in neutral territory. Its central chamber, a massive dome of transparent alloy, offered views of both Council and Coalition space. This symbolism wasn't accidental. Everything about the station had been designed to represent balance and new beginnings. Dr. Nickel Daniels stood at the center of the chamber, facing representatives from over 500 worlds. At 45, with steady hands and clear eyes, she had been chosen for a role no human had ever held before. The old Galactic Council is officially dissolved, announced Zelmore, speaking for the final time as High Counselor. In its place, we establish the Galactic Assembly, where all species may have voice proportional to their contribution, not their age. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds as beings from across the galaxy expressed approval in their native ways. Some whistled, others stomped appendages, while several species flashed bioluminescent patterns across their bodies. Nickel stepped forward when the noise subsided. As the first elected moderator of the assembly, I pledge to uphold our founding principles. Knowledge shared freely, independence respected absolutely, and security maintained collectively. The creation of the assembly marked the end of a 30-year journey that began with humanity's desperate departure from Council authority. What had started as a fight for survival had evolved into something greater, a fundamental restructuring of galactic civilization. In the Assembly's first session, Nickel presented the technology sharing protocols, rules that would govern how species exchange knowledge. Unlike the Council's system of withholding advanced technology from developing species, these protocols focused on proper training and safety rather than artificial restrictions. No species will be denied knowledge based on their history or development stage, Nickel explained. However, all technologies must include appropriate safeguards and training. Not everyone was pleased with the new order. Some former Council members, particularly those who had benefited most from the old system, voiced concerns. Without proper controls, we risk catastrophic misuse of dangerous technologies, argued the representative from Xandor, whose civilization had once held significant power in the Council. Admiral Rick Harris, now commander of the Joint Coalition Council Defense Fleet, addressed these fears directly. Under the old system, we faced precisely what you fear. The Torosi mining disaster, the Nelvan plague, the collapse of the Jerum atmosphere. All these happened because species were given technological scraps without proper understanding. True safety comes from complete knowledge, not partial access. Throughout the station, in meeting rooms and informal gathering spaces, former enemies found common ground. Scientists who had once competed now collaborated openly. Military officers who had faced each other in standoffs now planned joint exercises. In one such room, Earth physicist Jim Nelson worked with a Council engineer named Tralve on improvements to the faster-than-light communication network that would connect assembly worlds. If we combine your quantum entanglement method with our subspace harmonics, Tralve suggested, we could reduce transmission delay by 80% and improve security, Jim added. No one could intercept or jam these signals. This scene repeated throughout the station, collaboration yielding results neither side could have achieved alone. On the third day of the assembly, Nickel addressed the gathering once more. Today we implement the Defense Accord, establishing joint protection for all member worlds regardless of their military capability. This was perhaps the most significant change from the Council era, when smaller or newer species often found themselves vulnerable to threats the Council deemed not a priority. As the assembly session concluded, Nickel stood with Frank Mason, now elderly but still serving as an advisor, watching ships from dozens of worlds departing the station. "When we left the council, did you ever imagine it would lead to this?" Nickel asked. Frank smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. "Not specifically this, but I knew humanity would find its own path." "We did more than find our path," Nickel said. "We changed the galaxy's direction." Far below, on worlds that had never known true independence, people looked up at unfamiliar stars with new hope. Species that had been relegated to the margins now found themselves with voices that mattered. And throughout the galaxy, a message spread, one of cooperation without domination, of progress without exploitation. Humanity's departure from the Galactic Council had indeed marked a new era, not just for Earth, but for all who called the stars their home. Legacy of the Stars. 5 years after the formation of the Galactic Assembly, a small ship approached the outer edge of the Sol system. The vessel, named Unity Seeker, carried an important passenger on a personal journey. Kelten, the child of former High Counselor Zell Moore, stared at the blue-green planet growing larger in the viewscreen. Earth, the world that had changed everything. As a historian documenting the transformation of galactic society, Kelten had visited dozens of worlds, but none held the significance of humanity's homeworld. "We're cleared for landing at New Geneva Spaceport," announced the pilot, a young human named Jack Reynolds. Kelten's eye stalks quivered with anticipation. "Thank you. I've waited a long time for this visit." The massive spaceport bustled with activity as beings from across the galaxy moved through its terminals. Unlike the segregated ports of the Council era, here all species mingled freely. Signs appeared in multiple languages, and environmental sections accommodated various biological needs without isolation. Waiting at the arrival gate was Zoe Phillips, granddaughter of Frank Mason. Now serving as Earth's Cultural Exchange Director, she had agreed to guide Kelten during this historic visit. "Welcome to Earth," she said, offering the traditional greeting gesture of Kelten's people. "My grandfather would have been honored to meet you." "The honor would have been his," Kelten replied. "Your grandfather and mine were on opposite sides of history, yet together they created something neither imagined possible." Their first stop was the Museum of Galactic Relations, built on the site where humanity had first made contact with alien life centuries earlier. Inside, holographic displays showed the evolution of Earth's place in the galaxy, from newcomers to outcasts to architects of a new order. "This exhibit is our newest," Zoe explained, leading Kelten to a room filled with everyday objects. "We call it shared innovation. Each item represents technology developed through cross-species collaboration." Kelten examined a small medical device. "This combined Tarosi mineral knowledge with human biological understanding, correct?" Zoe nodded. "It's now standard equipment on every rescue ship in the assembly fleet. It saved thousands of lives across dozens of species." Later, they visited the Academy of Interstellar Sciences, where students from over 70 worlds studied together. In one laboratory, a Nelvan professor supervised as human and Sandorian students worked side by side on an environmental restoration project. "Remarkable," Kelten commented. "Under the old council, these species would never have shared such knowledge." "That's what my grandfather fought for," Zoe said. "Not just human independence, but the right of all species to learn from each other." As evening fell, they stood on a hilltop overlooking the lights of New Geneva. Above them, the night sky was filled with stars and the visible shapes of orbital structures. "When your people left the council, many believed you would destroy yourselves within a generation," Kelten said. "Instead, you lifted up others." "Not without mistakes," Zoe admitted. "There were failures along the way. The colony crisis on Proxima Ia, the technology theft by separatist groups. Even now, some former council worlds refuse to join the assembly." Kelten's translator conveyed a sound similar to laughter. "Perfect systems don't exist. The difference is how we respond to imperfection." The Council sought to control it. The Assembly adapts to it. On their final day, they visited the Memorial Garden, where tributes to those lost during the transition years stood in quiet dignity. Names from many worlds were etched in stone, including those who died during the Arcturian incident. "My research has uncovered something interesting," Kelton said as they walked among the monuments. Before humans left the Council, several other species had considered similar actions but lacked the courage. "We didn't know that," Zoe replied. "We thought we were alone." "You were never truly alone, just the first brave enough to act." Kelton paused before a fountain at the garden center. "That is humanity's true legacy, not the technology or even the assembly, but the courage to imagine something better." As Kelton departed Earth the next day, the historian carried more than research notes. The visit had confirmed what many across the galaxy now understood. The stars belonged to no single species, but to all who dared to reach for them together.